started Genesis 11, and then we're going to finish Genesis 11, and then we're going to move over to Genesis 12, where we're going to learn about Abram, who is later going to turn into Abraham. And then we'll do a little recap real quick. Okay, recap. So Anthony went over Shem, Japheth, and Ham, and then he had that crazy looking map where he showed where everybody was kind of distributing through. And then he made the reflection or the connection between Cornelius, Paul, and Philip in Acts, how they also mirrored the same paths that they had taken, that Japheth and Ham had taken. And then he talked about the Tower of Babel, and then he showed us, and they kind of showed us that people were trying to still take control of their own lives, right, and not trusting the Lord. Is there any questions from last chapter before we move on to the rest of Genesis 11? No?
Nope, I covered everything.
Oh.
You did a real good job.
Just kidding.
Humble brag.
Josh is rolling his eyes.
Yeah, he is rolling his eyes like, no, you didn't. All right, Genesis 11. 10. Okay, bye.
Hello, good evening.
Later.
Teenager.
Does anybody want to read Genesis 11, 10 through 15?
Me. Oh, gotta be quicker than that. This is how 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of our
Hey, you better learn his name. This is going to be your first kid.
You're prophesying now. Arphaxad, and after he had become the father of Arphaxad, Shem lived 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad was 35 years old, he became the father of Shelah. And after he had become the father of Shelah, Arphaxad lived 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he became the father of Eber, and after he had become the father of Eber, Shelah lived 403 years and had other sons and daughters.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, we're not done yet. There's a whole other slide of more lineage stuff. But I wanted to kind of just, we were switching kind of mindsets. We're going into the lineage now, right? We were just talking about Tower of Babel, everything that was happening there, and then it's like pause mid-chapter. Now we're going into the lineage of where we're going to see will eventually lead to Abraham. But I kind of wanted us to stay aware, see the similarities to Genesis 5, where we were seeing also the lineage of Seth. So now we're going to see 10 generations from Shem, and it's going to give us this breakdown, and we're going to see like this consistency too. It's going to be like the name, right? So it's the father of blank lived this many years and had other sons and daughters, and so we're seeing this repetition per each sentence. We're going to finish off the rest of the chapter too, but we're going to keep seeing that. And so does anybody know why it's listed that way?
Because this was
Not you,
passed down
Josh.
by word of mouth through the generations.
Yeah, so it was, these things weren't written down, so it was all passed down per, so I guess, I don't know how you
Oral
would say.
tradition,
Yes.
i.e. inculcation.
See, those are words.
Yeah.
I know, right?
I have a question on ages, because I was asked this question today at work, and because I was telling them I was excited after you left, you know, because they were like, yeah, and I was like, yeah, I said it's a really cool Bible study on Wednesdays, you know, and I said you guys are always welcome to come. So one of the girls asked, because you know it says 403 years old, she goes, was that actually? I mean, they actually lived that long, and she said, and what was the question? Because she said, I know that some of them lived like for 900 years old. So, and I feel that I gave the right answer. So I just said, well, you have to understand, they just started with Adam and Eve, you know, and then they had to populate because what the Lord said to do, right? So she was asking, and so it was like brother and sister being being together, you know, and all that, because I know that like today, it's called inbred, right? And so, yeah, and it's wrong. And so they're saying, well, then why are people still, you know, like doing that? And I was like, that I know of, the only ones that really do it is, I mean, here are Mormons, you know, that polygamy, you know, to get married to their daughters, all that stuff, right? And then she asked if a year is 1,000 years to the Lord, is 1 year. And after that, I just kind of was like, well, you know what? Maybe you should just come.
Let's go find out together.
I think that's a great response. The crazy part is that you asking this, literally Anthony and I had this conversation last night where we were talking about it, and he was like, we should really do more digging so that we can answer this. So
Nice.
Holy Spirit was very active there. Yeah, very crazy. But yeah, I think definitely it was interracial, like it's between siblings. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. But I think Josh talked about this in the beginning of Genesis, where we were talking about how they were much older back then. They lived for a lot longer years, and then slowly it starts getting smaller and smaller. A lot of it had to do with like the atmosphere, and just like this. Slowly, things have not been as healthy for us too as they were back then. I know there's a fancy word for it, probably.
Everybody looks at you.
What am I
Just
looking
like
for?
the law.
Oh, the reason why, there's a few different theories. The atmosphere was definitely different. It was a very oxygen-rich environment back then. That's a theory. We don't know exactly why they were living this long, but I would say it's a very accurate statement to say that they did live this long. They were aware of the lunar calendar, the heliocentric Earth. They knew that. People that say like, oh, a bunch of Bible-believing flat earthers, it is in Scripture that the Earth was round and it actually revolves around the sun. Mm-hmm. So they knew how long it took for the sun or the Earth to revolve around the sun, and that was a year-type calendar. So they knew these things. They actually had a different calendar system, but it's still a year long. Not to the exact date that we have it, but it's almost accurate.
Very similar.
Almost perfectly accurate. Yeah, but even the Mesopotamian calendar before that, all these calendars all still mark a 28-day lunar cycle and a roughly 360-day year.
Yeah.
And they start in fall
Yep.
versus in
Yep.
January.
In January. Yeah.
See, so with that being said, because, correct me if I'm wrong, please, because I also said, because she asked, I forgot what else she asked me, but this is what I said, is that if you do read, the Bible, it does say, like, on the 4th month, on the 17th day. I use that as an example.
Yep.
You know, and so, wouldn't that be April 17th, you know?
Well,
For them, no.
no, 'cause it
Depending
goes
on where
to-
they're starting from,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
And usually the way that they started marking calendars during those times is they marked it during the rule of whoever the king was, or even like the patriarch at the time. And so they would be like in the 2nd year of King whoever's in the 4th month, and it's just, this is when we start this calendar because now we're keeping track of who is in charge. And so it's kind of hard to track back from there, but they still understood it's been 2 years since this person's been in charge. It's been 4 months since this person's been in charge. So it wouldn't be April. And they also had different names for their months.
Star, Nisan,
Yeah.
Shaban.
That's the
Yeah.
Hebrews,
Yeah.
Hebrew calendar. But sounds like this was hungry. They need to come through.
Yeah.
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 Great question.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, you're always welcome.
Yes.
Give them a link to the Facebook.
I
Or
was wondering,
YouTube.
she was asking me, and I was looking for your texts.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got 18 now. My man.
It's Connection Center, right?
Perfect. All right. So I think that was really what I wanted to keep it as we move on to the next is just understanding the genealogy, why it's so important. It's literally getting us from it's getting us from Adam to Seth, and we're going to see it from Seth to Abraham, or Shem to Abraham. And then I think that's all I had. Let's move on. All right. Anybody want to?
I got it. When Eber was 34 years old, he became the father of Peleg. And after he had become the father of Peleg, Eber lived 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he became the father of Reu. And after he had become the father of Reu, Peleg lived 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32 years old, he became the father of Serug. And after he became the father of Serug, Reu lived 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he became the father of Nahor. And after he had become the father of Nahor, Serug lived 200 years and had other sons and daughters. Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah. And after he had become the father of Terah, he lived 119 years and had other sons and daughters.
Perfect. Thank you. So I have this picture, and it kind of breaks down. I know, I liked it, and this helped me a lot. But it kind of gives you the breakdown of Adam all the way down to Abraham. It says Abraham, but it's Abram is where we're at right now. But we see from Noah, right? So this was the flood time, and then we kind of start seeing from Shem. So it's going to go down here. And so we are focusing now on the lineage that's going to end up bringing us all the way down to Jesus. But it is just like a reflection of God's promise, right? Like we already knew that a Messiah was coming, and so we're seeing this breakdown through generations. Like it's coming down. We're able to like see where it started from and where it brought us to it now. But we're gonna dive into now Terah, and Terah was the father of Abram, and we're gonna get to their story a little bit more in the next chapter too. Any questions or any additional information you guys want to add on?
Doing great.
All right, I can send this picture too. You guys can Google it. There's a lot of them. It's really good. All right, Genesis 11:26 through 32.
I will. When Terah was 70 years old, he became the father of Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Terah's descendants. This is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of Lot. During his father Terah's lifetime, Haran died in his native land in Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abram and Nahor took wives for themselves. Abram's wife was named Sarai, and Nahor's wife was named Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, who was the father of both Milcah and Iscah. But Sarai was barren; she had no children. And Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of Abram, and they set out from Ur of Chaldeans for the land of Canaan. But when they arrived in Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran.
Okay, this one has a lot of information, and I probably should have broken it up, but I really wanted us to focus on Terah before we moved on to like the next story. Okay, so we go, so we see it start off, and it says this is the account of Terah. So now we're seeing a transition. We're going through the lineage now, and now we're gonna like zoom in now into who Terah was and like why there was such importance to it. So we see this transition, and we're moving past the Shem, Japheth, and Ham, and we're moving into like a narrative. And so we see Abram, and so we know that it's going to eventually turn into Abraham, but we're not there yet. It's still Abram. But the main focus is, we know that the main focus or the lineage usually focuses on the firstborn, and so that's what we're going to kind of look into here. It's going to be that Abram was the firstborn. But then we see them talk about Nahor and Haran, which are the two siblings. It's kind of, it listed them as like the less prominent, but they still have an important role later on, because we talked about Haran, and Haran's son is Lot. And if you guys remember Sodom and Gomorrah, that's kind of where that goes from. And then Nahor's descendants also played a role in the marriage of Isaac and Rebekah later on in the future. So even though it just kind of lists their names, there's still so many like correlation later on that we see in Genesis. So just because we don't dive into the deep right now, it doesn't mean that the roles weren't important. Like they still had a role later on. But right, verse 28. Let's see. This is hard to zoom in here. What does it say on there? Sorry.
During his father Terah's lifetime, Haran died, and
Okay, so Ur the Chaldean identified as Haran's birthplace and the starting point of Abram's journey. So Ur was a prominent city in ancient Mesopotamia, and I have a map here. It's not that great, but but it's known for its advanced civilization and polytheistic worship. So there is scripture. Where is it at? I'll run into it later on. But basically, Terah was also known as, he worshipped other gods. So he, oh goodness, where is that scripture? Now I want to find it. Genesis. Right, well, we'll get there. Yeah, so that's considered his, like, where he started at. The reference to the Chaldeans connects the narrative to specific historical and geographic context. So it's providing insight to the cultural and religious environment where Abram is being called by from God. So we're kind of seeing this contrast between where Abram is going to be called by God and where, like, the people were at that point. So they were following their gods. They had other idols at that point. And so for God to make that connection with Abram, when we read into it, we'll see why it's such a big deal. And then verse 29, Abram and Nahor take wives, following through with the be fruitful and multiply. So at that point, it was Sarai, but eventually it turns into Sarah. And then Milcah was the daughter of Hera, who was the brother of Abram. So it makes Milcah a niece and a sister-in-law to Nahor, right? So there was, like, inter-family. Yeah, when I was reading it, I was like, ooh, spicy. But I mean, it seems odd for us now, but if you really think about it, how were they supposed to be fruitful and multiply? At that point, there was no other way of doing it. But verse 30 talks about Sarah being barren and not being able to have children. And so I just kind of wanted, when I was reading this, I was like, ooh, you know, I get it. But also think about it at that point, like, everybody was multiplying. You're seeing all these lineages before, and they had more children, and they had more children, you know, like, it's just going down. Everybody's continuing to have all these kids, and then we get to Abram, and it's like, Abram and Sarah had not had any kids, right? And so even though for us, it's like, okay, they just couldn't have kids, it's like, no, it's a big deal if they couldn't have kids, considering that generations getting to them were having tons of them. So there must have been that pressure on Abram, especially being the firstborn son, too. It was a significant issue because lineage and inheritance were crucial in maintaining family legacy and property. And then Sarai's barrenness, or not being able to have children, was the way that God's miraculous and would be able to miraculously intervene. So we see a covenant between God and Abraham that we'll eventually read through. But then there's also this theme where we ran into other females in the Bible that have gone through similar things. And so one of them was Hannah in 1 Samuel, and then Elizabeth in Luke 1. And it's showing us God's ability to bring life to places where there is none, right? So I think this also goes into, like, how miraculous and beautiful it is to be able to have children. It's just so common now that people just have kids, but it's like so many things have to be perfect. But not gonna get into that too much. Okay, verse 31. So Terah took his grandson, his daughter-in-law, and then they decided to relocate. So the settlement in Haran suggests a pause in the journey, possibly due to Terah's age or health. But this definitely stopped them from getting to where they were supposed to get, right? They were supposed to get to Canaan, but they didn't make it. So in the map, it kind of shows them in a year, and they go their way. They work their way up, and they're supposed to come down all the way here, but they didn't. They stopped there and they settled there. And yeah, I think at that point we're seeing, like, the end of Terah, and so now we're going to go into Abram's journey. This is, like, closing the door now on Abram and his family, because as we read into the next chapter, we're going to see where God tells them, like, it's time to leave everything behind and go. So we're getting ready to close that chapter. Any questions or anything else anybody wants to chime in?
So, a question for the group. This is the conversation we were having last night. Is I guess at what point? Because in the Old Testament, that was okay, that like for your brother or sister to have kids multiply. But then in the New Testament, it also says like that's not okay, or right? Am I wrong? Like I
It's in
don't
the
remember, but
Levitical law too. In Leviticus.
Leviticus.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Okay, so not in the New Testament. But I guess at what point did that become not okay?
When they became a nation, when they became a 1.5 million nation.
Yeah,
But they were still encouraged, and it's a theme that even goes on after that, to stay within your tribe. So
Yeah.
Benjamites marry Benjamites.
That's true.
Levites marry Levites, and so you still stay within. And that's even a thing we still see today. You see, this is like the first, I would say, worldwide acceptable point to even have racial couples and marriages and stuff like that. But even then, like,
Yeah.
you would still, like, I'm from Florida. At least that's where I joined the Navy out of. But like, you guys are from California, and your daughter's having trouble finding somebody. You might be like, go to San Diego. There's got to be a guy there. But if you were from like a rural town, that's a common discussion. Is go back home, find a good person there. You know, and so it's not. Yeah.
You know why that is?
Oh, tribes.
Yeah.
You know why that is, son?
Oh yeah.
So when it comes to tribe, I know, well, back home they still practice it. Even though they may not be strict on it, but they will feel like, not my tribe, but if you bring, so I know people who are Nigerian and they have to marry within that tribe. So that their parents will tell them, it is like a Nigerian Nigeria, it has to be from Nigeria.
That's right.
Wow.
So I know this person, he had to go home and get a wife from his tribe to marry, because they try to keep that that name going, the bloodline going, and everything, where they don't want to miss love.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that a lot of these things are still being practiced now. When it is just that you don't hear about it.
Hi.
Hi guys.
You don't hear about it because it's not something that the whole world knows, but it's still out there.
Yeah. Wow.
So further on, when you get into the Abrahamic covenant, these are God's chosen people, not the Canaanites, not the Babylonians, not the Egyptians. God's chosen bloodline of people. Now we are adopted into this promise. We are Gentiles, not of the lineage of Japheth. Everyone in here is of the lineage of Japheth. Is now adopted into this Abrahamic covenant, into that blood, paid for by the blood of Christ. That's why we'll see later on in, well, we won't study it unless you guys study it then, is when you get into Exodus and then you get to Joshua, they're saying, go in and do not intermarry with anyone. Not one of them. You stay within your tribe, you stay within your people.
Okay.
They even eventually end up saving the tribe of Benjamin. Wow, too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the blood. God chose the Israelite people underneath Abraham and said, these are my people. Now that has a whole nother context to it that we don't have time for tonight, I'm sure. But yeah,
So with that being said, we're Gentiles.
we are Gentiles.
So I know this is, because my son asked me, he said that he was told that Jesus was a pagan, but Jesus wasn't a pagan.
No, Jesus was a Jew, 100%.
That's what I was telling him. And he said, no, you have to Google it.
Hey, you said Google. Hey, whoa. You said Google.
Never mind.
You said So Jesus was 100% a Jew and did not teach from anything else except for the straight scriptures. It was all scripture that he taught.
Wasn't the pagans were like the Pharisees and all?
They were
Jews as well.
Yeah, they were manipulating the law.
Oh,
So they would take the law and it would be like, hey, you have to honor the Sabbath. And so Jesus finds himself hungry one day and is plucking little wheat off and eating it. And they're going, hey, wait a second, you're working on the Sabbath. He's like, we have to eat. What are we doing? And then even when he healed, They were like, you can heal any other day of the week. Don't heal on the Sabbath. He was like, what are we doing right now? And so the Pharisees were manipulating the law.
Okay.
So the pagans were like the Romans.
Okay.
The Romans were
because
pagans.
they came out with the pagan like holidays and
Yes.
all that, right?
Oh, I know what he's
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
saying that Christianity was merged with paganism right around there's a whole lot of history to that.
Yeah, that's why I was like, no, and he was
But
like,
even
Mom, you
I
gotta,
wouldn't even
you know,
believe that either.
No,
and
I
can
don't.
prove
I
that.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'm gonna ask. Because I wasn't doubting, but I was like, you know what? Because he's like, Mom, you have to Google it and you gotta find out. And I'm like,
No.
"Okay."
So, long story short, when Constantine was in charge of Rome, the Eastern Empire of Rome, he moved the empire to Constantinople, which is currently Istanbul. And he said, we need to make the entire Roman Empire Christian. Well, at the time, they had the winter solstice celebration on December 21st. And so they said, well, how do we bring everyone together? Let's celebrate Jesus' birth on the same time, so roughly December 25th. However, Christians were already celebrating Christ's birth on December 25th, pre-Constantine. He just said, what better way to bring everyone together? We're already having these celebrations. Why not merge them together? So that's why the whole Roman kingdom started to, and that's where a lot of people get that from.
Yeah.
Oh, Constantine invented Christmas. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. There's all sorts of historical documents showing the church fathers, the people who went right after that celebrated. In fact, St. Nicholas, right? We all know St. Nick is, right? He was at that conference, and he punched a dude in the face that was a heretic. So not only does St. Nicholas give out presents, he's got hands too. But
That is a gift.
it is it's the gift that keeps on giving. But St. Nicholas, at that same time, during that same time frame, would go give presents to orphanages.
Yes.
That's how it began. St. Nicholas, who was at the Council of Constantinople, was there, and he was the one that started doing something that time. Well, at least the gift giving. The gift giving portion of it. Now, the whole tree thing, that's a whole different story. I won't ever condemn trees. I love trees.
There's some pretty interesting views on Christmas trees. Like some people say that the star represents the Holy Spirit. The tree is like it's all super weird. I like it.
Stuff,
Yeah.
make it match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
No, I
What
No,
is
I've
Jeremiah
heard it
saying?
before.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
They chopped it down into craftsman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Misinterpreting scripture.
Yeah.
That's what
Big
that is.
time.
Yes.
Big time. Okay. Now I lost
Oh
my
my God.
train of thought.
I'm sorry. You knew I was going to bring Christmas up.
No,
Come on now.
I told you I didn't have too much, so keep on talking. Okay. So
I thought,
Mark
okay,
and
I
Mary-
want to say something real quick. I always thought this was very interesting. I read this probably 2 or 3 years ago. It just blew off the page to me. I call him Terah, just because that's the way I read it.
Is it?
Anyway, it could be Terah. I don't know. Terah, he gets the urge to go to Canaan. It was weird. I thought this was Abraham's dream. But Terah had the original message, go to Canaan. And it just made me wonder what would have happened if he did stop in Haran.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Would he be like the guy who got the
Abraham.
message? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's got something causing him to leave his land and go to Canaan. Something, we don't know if it was a dream. Maybe he didn't tell his son. I don't know.
That's not in scripture.
Yeah, it's not in scripture, but it says Terah took his family and
Yeah.
headed towards Canaan, and then I don't know, he thought Haran was better. I don't know.
So Joshua 24:2 says, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: Long ago, your ancestors, including Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates River and worshipped other gods."
Oh. So there you go. Yeah. Maybe that's why he didn't want to quit worshiping the other
Yeah,
gods.
he
Maybe
was
he
still-
did the message from God, because I'm sure if I worship God, I'm teaching my kids to worship God. If I worship, Zeus, I'm teaching my kids to worship Zeus. So Abram got the message. These are the gods you serve, but he got a different message from God.
From
saying,
God.
hey,
So-
enough of that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, when they were going through and they were trying to get to Canaan, that was like where they had to fight through land of Canaan.
Right.
It's kind of crazy that you're saying that now because everyone going up to Canaan worshipped other gods. So it's kind of like God was like, "Oh, okay, cool. You want to do this? I'm going to show you what it looks like when the real God comes through." A lot like what he did with Egypt. Like instead of destroying all the plagues together, he was just like, one by one, I'll show you that I'm the true God.
Do you remember which gods they're worshiping?
That's crazy.
Baal.
That's what I was going to say.
They're all called
Baal's original name.
Nimrod.
I read something that they worship the sun
Visible.
god.
Who's the sun god?
I forgot the name.
Baal.
Ra.
Ra is the Egyptian sun god.
Oh.
Baal is the Sumerian sun god.
Okay.
It's also Beelzebul. Is that
Beelzebul?
Beelzebul?
That's a whole different subject.
That's a whole different.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
That's a whole
Big
different.
gods.
You weren't here for his Bible study on Beelzebub.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Let's see. Make sure I check everything. Okay, cool. Genesis 12:1-3.
Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed."
That's me.
Dude, that's crazy.
Okay, so funny you were talking about that, but verse 1 says, "Leave your." Said it, go from your country. So that means that he was settled there. He is coming from Haram because he was settled there. So he's getting ready to leave there. But we see this direct communication between the Lord and Abram. And then Abram's name means high father in Hebrew. And then when it changes, it'll change to something different. But we are introduced to the Abrahamic, sorry, yes, Abrahamic covenant. This is the a big monumental foundation for the covenant that's to be made, which is kind of where we start seeing the plan of redemption coming in with Jesus. But we talked about the royal grants before. Josh went into details about what a royal grant was, where we see a king or a ruler makes a gift or promise to a loyal servant. So it helps to understand the nature of the Abrahamic covenant. So God, as the ultimate authority, is making a promise to Abraham. That promise is unconditional and intended for the benefit of both Abraham and all nations. So we see the promise, right? So God promises the land, which is the land of Canaan, the great nation. This can be the Jewish people and also all the prosperity and the seeds and the future, Abraham and his family. A great name. He will be known for his relationship with the Lord. Names were very prominent things to be known for. If your name was a big thing, and everybody knows who Abraham is even to now, right? So that happened. But it says, sorry, I can't see this picture in this thing. So that you will be blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And so we see this kind of protection that God's giving. So Abraham will be a vessel used to bless, but the ultimate blessing is coming from God. So God will use Abraham, right? And then he'll bless those who you bless. Yeah, right. So there's no need for retaliation because God will take care of the ones who will go against you. And then all families of the earth will be blessed, which foreshadows of Jesus Christ being a descendant of Abraham, who will be the Messiah. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I'd like to add just one thing, and that is, it's a big deal when the eldest child separates from the father's place, because the eldest child got the largest portion, usually half, and then the other half was divided between all the children. Why did he get the half? Because he now becomes the matriarch of the family, and go to him, and he controls their finances and their income, including, we're talking brothers, sisters, we're talking back in that time, we're talking today.
Yeah.
So when God tells him to leave his kindred and go with That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's not just a, you know,
Move to Texas.
yeah, somebody just pick up and go some, I mean, that would be a big deal, because if God told you to do that, you should do that. But my point behind that is,
Yeah.
it was bigger than just, oh gee, God's told me to move, so I'm gonna move. I mean, he had to really be committed to God to do that.
Yeah.
Because they're to, when the dad dies, they're to take care of that.
Wow.
And I thought an interesting point too when I was reading through this is that he took Lot with him too. And it's like, well, wasn't he supposed to leave Lot behind, or did he take Lot?
Because they have no kids.
So maybe that
I would
was
say one, he had no kids, and Lot's dad died.
dad died, so he just
Yeah.
took him in. He
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
this.
Because he's the oldest, so the older kid is now he's not his father because Abraham is the first son.
yeah.
So you're
So he doesn't have any children. That would be like
would that, and if I'm pretty sure if he had a kid, he would still inherit his brother's child.
Because it was the oldest.
Yeah,
Um,
because we do that in our so
okay.
like so one of my sister passed away, and the husband wanted to remarry, but he didn't want to stay. He didn't want to take the kid, so the kid had to go to one of my older siblings. Yeah, so the kid, well, now he knows, but our older sibling is the one who raised him as his child.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So the family takes like the responsibility. Yeah.
Do have a question. So, kind of diving into college stuff here, but I'm reading this book. It's called Written in Stone, and it talks about a lot of I don't know if you're going to go over the Ten Commandments all in this, but it talks about a lot of the covenants that God makes. Like even when we look at like Adam and Eve, they break all the Ten Commandments, and then we see with Noah, he establishes a version of the Ten Commandments, and then we see it again here. I don't know if anyone else sees that, or if there's any kind of like direct tie to that. Maybe that's just like, I don't know, that book seems kind of weird at times. But I see here like now the Lord said to Abraham, go from your country, your kindred, and your father's house. Like, people oftentimes will put their family as like their worship. Like that too, I put my faith and my trust in my family. But he's putting his faith in God. Now he's saying like go and have like be a great nation. So like, is that kind of like the Ten Commandments being shown here, or?
I would say no. Only because the Ten Commandments were, they had to establish laws. God was trying to establish through his people, through their example, what he expects his people to do. Abram at the time, I think was already, most of the people that God was choosing at that time were already doing it to a degree. And that's why God was honoring them. So we talked about this. He recognized Enoch. He recognized Noah. Well, what did he recognize about them? He recognized them that it's in their innate nature to be a righteous individual. They're not murdering. They're not stealing. They're not cheating on their spouse. All those types of things that are in the Ten Commandments. So I think Abram he's commanding him to go because he's already recognized you will carry this out the way I need it carried out. I know you. I've seen the way that you react, the way that you act, your inner moral compass, those types of things. And so I'm going to choose you as the person I need to create a nation, to show the world eventually who I am.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of it.
All right. Any more questions, guys?
Question.
Yeah.
When I don't know if you're gonna get there, but you know how when God like established, made a covenant with Abraham, or with Abram, I feel like it's so cool that he didn't need anything from Abraham. Like he pretty much just needed just a yes, and God is gonna do everything after. That's
Yeah.
always cool.
Yeah. I was reading, and this is like, it was listed as like the walk of faith, like he's walking with faith of like trusting God. And so it's like, okay, this is what God's telling him to do. So it's like, we do it, this is everything that God has. So he could have easily said no. He could have just stayed back and not done it. But kind of where Josh was going with, is like God already knew that Abraham was going to basically follow that path to get us to where Jesus will be here. Yeah. Cool. Let's move on real quick. 20 minutes. All right. Genesis 12, 4 through 9.
I got you. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai and his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran. They set out to go to the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land of the place of Shechem to the Oaked of Morah, at the time of the Canaanites in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he built an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on, still going toward the Negeb.
Sweet, thank you. Okay, so we see Abraham on his journey now, that he's picking up and going. And then when he gets seen, and there was already people that were living in that land, but God still tells him this is going to be the land. It's like the promised land that he talked about. And I thought it was super interesting because it's like at that point, he's like, this is a land that's going to be yours, or it's going to be your generation to come, right? But he was just like, okay. He made an altar, and then he like moved on. Like it wasn't like, I don't know how I was like, why are those people there? Why are they leaving me? Or get him out of there, you know? But he was like patient, and comes with this patience that he has. And then the Lord appeared to him, and he set an altar, and then he kept going. So it was not time yet, right? Patience, wisdom, faith, trust, see. And then I wish I would have the other map. There's a map that kind of gave us more of a detail. But then he went to Bethel, and there he pitched a tent, and then he built an altar. So he was there for a little while. We see something a little different here because pitching a tent and then making that altar. But that's in Bethel, which means house of God in Hebrew. But that wasn't the end goal. He still kept going towards Negeb. Here's the map again, just so we kind of see it. But you kind of see where after Haran, he starts working his way down towards Canaan, which is that whole area there. And then we're going to see him now going towards Egypt. And then, let's see. I think that's all I had for there. Do you want to add anything, John?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that he leaves. But God says, I will give you this land. He didn't say, I've given you this land.
Yeah.
So he's there, and he's like, I don't know what you want me to do. He builds an altar to God. God doesn't really speak back, and so he's like, well, I don't really know how to go. Yeah, well, we see why he leaves in verse 10, but God says, I will give you this land. And he's like, okay, so it's not mine yet. I'm hanging out. I'm doing my thing, doing what you call me to do. And then this happens. So a faith thing, I think.
Yeah.
He didn't have a Bible to look back on.
Exactly.
So there's that.
Okay, Genesis 12, 10 through 10 through 13. Oh my gosh.
Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while, because the famine was severe. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, look, know that you are a beautiful woman, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will try to kill me. Well, then they will kill me, but will let you live. Please say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and on account of you, my life will be spared.
Thank you. Okay, so now we see this transition. So now we're moving again into like a story.
Just call him just.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're moving into like a story or a narrative about Abram and Sarai in Egypt. So because of the Nile River in Egypt, that's why they started traveling that way, because there was a drought. That it's assumed that that's why they were going that way towards the river. And so Abraham came up with a plan. And so it's not necessarily a lie, it's a half-truth, right? Because Sarai was somewhat related. Genesis 20:12 says, besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. Because he does this again later on. The motive was to deceive those. So it was still wrong. So it was still a sin because it's what was in his heart, right? The plan was to say that they were not married but siblings to avoid Abram not being killed. Go back to that. So now Sarah honored her husband, though. She didn't throw him under the bus. She went along with the plan. And then, not saying that he was right, but she respected him in that sense. And so, sorry, I'll go to the next one. But where I was going with is that the only person that was really winning at this point was Abram. Nobody else was going to get any benefits. We're going to see as we read through the next verses that he gets all the sheep and oxen and cattle. So he was just thinking that he didn't want to get killed. I seen this other comment on it, and it's like, for him to say that his wife was very beautiful and super nice, but like they're older, and so she must have been very, very, very beautiful for him to be that scared that he was going to get killed for his wife.
There's, according to true tradition, she's one of the 4 most beautiful women in Scripture. So it's her, Ruth, Esther, and Bathsheba.
Mm. Let's go to the next verse 14, 16.
Don't you wish we knew what they looked like?
I really do. Yeah.
You said you
Not
said
Leah, for those who know.
Yeah. Not Leah.
Not Leah.
That's messed up.
Oh, poor Leah.
Leah.
Oh. That's me.
you mentioned that he sinned because it wasn't in his it was in his heart, right, to deceive. But I also think it's just showing right that he did not fully trust in God that he would die. He was like, I'm gonna die if I do this, but the Lord just told him you're gonna be blessed. I'm gonna bless you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be the
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. No, I think right. I think it just shows us even when you're walking right, there's still gonna be obstacles and things that are gonna make us stumble. Sorry, go for it.
Well, you said it, but then it also showed that he's also human, that we tend to forget that we're all in our feeling, he was all selfish, and he forgot about all the blessing and everything that God told him at that moment. He was like, think about me. Forget all of that you said. That's not for them around. I don't know who that is. If, when, but let me do something now. You tend to be like, I want to do it now, and God will take care of it later.
Yeah.
Well, just remember, he was just in the land that God told him to go, and God said, I'll give you this land. He builds an altar, right? This great relationship, builds an altar. God doesn't answer. At least we don't know, according to Scripture, God didn't answer. So then the famine comes in with the way that the area is. You've got the Nile that gets the constant feed of water in specific part of the world. You have to have rain. There are no rivers that go through the land of Israel, period. That's why Scripture talks about multiple times the former and the latter rain. They have to have rain to live. So drought, I 100% would agree with that. And he's like, I built you this altar, dude. Where are you at? You were supposed to call back upon me. You told me this. So now he's like, uh-oh, I put us all in a bind. We got to go to Egypt. I'm going to get killed. How many times have we done the same thing?
Yeah.
Well, and it just proves that we're just one decision away.
Yep.
We're only righteous because Jesus died on that cross, and his blood makes us righteous. But when we get in our heads rather than in our spirit, we're one decision away. No matter how close we are to God.
Yeah.
I think how close Abraham was. Really close.
Yeah.
And then we look at today what's happening in our Christian world, and that's the way I'm going to word it. All these top leaders are just totally, why? Because they got in their heads and in their flesh instead of staying in the spirit with the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, I even think when he was going towards Egypt, these things probably consumed him, the anxiety, the stress, to get to the point to where he was literally going to
The only way we're going to get through this is if you lie for me.
Yeah. So
Because
Yeah.
a lie is a lie.
Yeah.
So a half truth, is it a lie?
It's still a lie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a lie is a lie.
Yeah.
Like Josh too, those are the gateway soul. Abram sees there's a famine. He doesn't see there's God in his life. So he's only looking for things that he can put his faith in. Well, if it's just him and his wife, we don't know how old Lot is at this time. So, quite frankly, like if me and Josh in the wilderness and I have Ellie, like I'm not gonna be Ellie. Like my life's in your hands. If something happens, I'm gonna be like, look, Josh, don't think goes south, dude. Like you gotta carry me out of here.
Yeah.
I'm putting my life in your hands. That's probably what Abram was going through. Like there is no God.
He
that
was
you can
being
see.
human
Yeah.
Yeah.
instead of being the spirit.
What was Sarah was thinking? Like, I want to ask you.
Don't ask her. She got the worst ideas.
Yeah, she didn't make her decisions later on. Yeah. But I mean, like, we don't hear what she says, like, right?
True.
Just for some reason we skipped what she said, so that's why I was like,
She's probably like, you think I'm pretty? You're right. Whatever you say.
Just
Yeah.
Back in that day, they obeyed their husbands.
Yeah.
they did. There was no
Those
talking
things,
back.
They didn't really have, I mean,
No.
you didn't even get done with them at synagogue,
No.
you know? So, I mean, they
So
just,
she just she was
I think she should have had a relationship with the Lord, but do we fully know her full relationship?
we don't because yeah,
And we know, so
because
like
then she
from,
laughed. She laughed at
yeah,
his
from
dad.
like a not like necessarily evolutionary but biological standpoint, like we live in a very comfortable lifestyle right now, like extremely, like we don't really see death. Like if there is a drought, Abraham has the guts to necessarily make the right decision and tell everybody this is what we're doing at all costs, and not anything against females. You guys just care about feelings more. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But men go, I don't care about your feelings. We gotta go. So that's just from a long-term standpoint. That's what we've always been the type of person to do. Plus, a lion comes in the room. Men are gonna stand up with a spear. Women are going to go, I'm so afraid. That's what. You gonna fight? Okay, we got one. We got one in the room.
I'll record it.
I'll take notes.
Abel's alive, so
But so Abraham, that's why for thousands of years up until the past like 2 or 3 centuries, it's been listen to the men because the men are going to get us out of this. Because it's just the way it was. Lots of death.
It's
Doesn't
not
mean
a
it was
bad
right,
thing.
but-
We all play, and God set it up that we play a role.
Right.
And where the man's role was and where the woman's role was. And they were good roles. But just like everything else, we're one decision away from a bad decision. And the women decide that we can do it better than the men. But that's also the curse.
Yeah.
My question is, with all that being said, because I wonder about this, you know, because everyone in the Bible, and then now us, and then when we go to heaven, and it's like what you just asked, are we gonna be able to ask Sarah, hey, how did you feel that day? You know,
I think so.
just,
I 100% think
yeah,
so.
see, I think that's cool. I really do, because I would really like to talk to Joan.
Right.
Yeah.
Jonas is like, I'm tired of telling the story. It makes me look bad. You don't want to ask about Nineveh and the revival. You want to always ask about everybody wants to talk about whale.
I mean, I know I would be throwing up.
Yeah.
I would-
Jonah's probably out there. Go ask the whale. He's right down.
Yeah, well, that's why.
Yeah, I want to have a conversation with you.
No, I'm imagining a well outside of the water,
Right.
just walking around.
it's called. His name is Oswald. Okay.
Oswald the whale.
I mean, because, you know, like Pastor said, you know, they didn't have a Bible. We know their story. They don't know ours.
No.
And they will when we get there, I think.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, are they going to ask us, how do you know? You know? I think it's
Well,
fine.
we get to ask, but after we'll all be like a whole new body, a whole, like, how we gonna remember? And then this, I'm like, how am I gonna remember the pictures I have now in my mind?
Yeah. See, I had that as well. Am I going to remember?
Well,
And does it matter? Will it?
Samuel was woken up from his slumber, and he knew who Saul was, and he was like, "Why did you wake me up?" Maybe. He was asleep, dead.
Okay, we have
Already
4
know.
minutes.
All right.
I love this conversation, but let's keep going real quick. Okay, Genesis 14:16. Anybody?
Right. It says, when Abraham entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt well with Abraham. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels.
So does that mean that Pharaoh gave all the animals to? He did?
Yeah.
So he basically traded his
That's why
wife
he-
for tons of wealth.
Wow.
Is what happened here. But at this case, I guess his sister, according to what Pharaoh said. But to own this many animals, Abram was wealthy. And then where I was going with, like, everybody, or he was the only one that received this wealth, right? But Sarah had to join Pharaoh. And so then we see we're conflicted Pharaoh and his family because of this decision. Cool. Let's move on real quick. Let's finish up. Genesis 12:17 to 20.
I'll read it. The Lord, however, afflicted Pharaoh and his household with severe plagues because of Abram's wife Sarah. So Pharaoh summoned Abraham and asked, "What have you done to me? Why did you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she my sister, so that I took her as my wife? Now here's your wife. Take her and go." Then Pharaoh gave his orders concerning Abram, and they sent him away with his wife and all his possessions. So he took those animals that he gave him as well. He didn't take them back.
They get it all.
Wow.
Get it all
Yeah,
out.
because he didn't want anything to do
Wow.
with it.
Big question here.
What's your big question?
So they knew that what was happening obviously was superstitial, right? Like it was supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they knew God was God. They knew this was
Something.
coming from a.
They knew something was happening.
How did they know? How did he know
That's
the question.
that Sarah was not his sister, his full-blown sister? How did Pharaoh know?
Nobody?
It's-
The Egyptians had powers.
They had a magician.
They had magicians. They had the ability
Well, yeah,
to.
because then later on
Why
in
do you think
Exodus,
in
we
Exodus
see-
God is going,
Yeah.
look, you cannot mess around with this stuff. Divination, they used divination.
Yeah.
They turned their staffs into snakes.
Yeah.
They ain't no joke. They turned water into blood the same way he did. Now, they couldn't do everything that God
Yeah.
did, and obviously God showed that he was more powerful than anything close to what they could do. They had legit powers.
But they didn't come from
So, it was
So they, through something he had tears, hey, what's going on? Well, that woman you just took, that's his wife. How did they know? Through divination, through their seers, through their magic.
So they didn't necessarily know that it was a curse from the Lord. They just knew it was a curse.
They just knew
bestowed.
this is wrong.
That's
And
what's
they
happening.
also, because people are like, oh, marriage is like a new institution, it's of the state. Pharaoh knew this 3,000 plus years ago. You don't marry another man's wife. Monogamy was already a thing.
Yeah.
So there's that as well.
Oh, that's
I
true.
wonder if this is why Sarai was barren for so long. Because God's like, no, everyone's gonna mess around,
Oh.
and they're gonna mess up the promise, so she's not gonna have kids until he gets it together.
That's a good point.
That is a good point.
Just imagine them moving around with all those kids.
Yeah, this is not the first. I mean, this is the first time, but he does it again.
Yeah.
He's like, we got so much last time. Nice.
Kids anyway, we're
And then it says that she was given to Pharaoh, so it's like, in what ways was she given to Pharaoh? You
Oh,
know?
they're married.
I mean, as a wife, so I guess that would make sense because imagine if she was able to have children and she ended up having Pharaoh's children.
How long would they go?
So,
And I don't think he touched her.
was she?
I thought that's what I had ready there, that he didn't touch her.
Or he didn't know her.
Okay, so then.
Oh, the second time? Oh, so maybe this time. Because it's a different,
This is the first time.
yeah,
This time. When we go away,
not the second
next
time.
Bible studies.
So he
Yeah.
wasn't. They weren't intimate.
I think these two were.
Pharaoh and the wife. Oh, really?
And this is a different
Oh,
Pharaoh too. It's
that's
not
fair.
Pharaoh from Exodus. Pharaoh is like known as like chief, like head
It's
of
like
the.
king. It's like calling
King,
Caesar.
Caesar.
Yeah,
At
like
the
a
time.
king. Yeah,
Wow.
It's a title.
Yeah, it's just a title.
Honestly, I didn't. I see that.
yeah.
What was crazy too was like even Pharaoh knew like what Josh was saying, like he knew, polygamy, like being married to just one person's okay, but then God's people, we see they're the ones that introduce polygamy and going without that road, and then start finding other people that are like, oh, I like what you're doing there. So it's like cool to see that on this side, they come across someone that's honoring the Lord's word above even what they're doing. Because like he's like,
'cause he had
this is
many
your wife.
wives, yeah.
What are you making me do? Like now you're making me mad. Take her away. But he's only reaping what Abram gave him to have.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah. I had written down Abraham's fear led to lack of faith, which resulted in unintended consequences, right? Like these consequences weren't intended by God.
Don't you wonder how Sarah felt that her husband didn't stand up for her and gave her to another man?
Yeah.
The first time you see
My poor husband wouldn't live through it before I left to go to the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
He would
literally
not.
treated him. But, you know, out of all of this, Abraham did gain a lot of wealth, and we don't know how that wealth ended up taking him to where now it goes down through generations to where Jesus came from. But God allowed the situations to play themselves out, but there were consequences to their actions. And then, I mean, we already talked about, like, Egypt and stuff. Like, we see this, the plagues, how they're going to, very similar to how they're going to be in Exodus, the next book. So we're seeing, like, a lot of similarities kind of prepping us to get to that point. Let's see. I think we honestly have covered everything with everyone was saying.
Nice.
Yeah, this is great. Is there any other comments or things you guys have? Questions? If not, we're 3 minutes over. Really.
Good job.
Well, I'm saying this is like telltale modern day Adam and Eve in the garden.
Yeah.
Like to the T. Like they get the possessions, Adam and Eve got knowledge. Adam let his wife interact with the serpent. Kind of like now in turn he was cursed. Satan was cursed. I'm just saying, like, ties are crazy here.
Yeah. I think Genesis as a whole book, we can see this like repetition of like we constantly keep getting it wrong. And we're just continuously getting it wrong.
What do you mean?
Who's cursed?
Pharaoh got struck with something from God. Just like
With
But
the
you're saying
plague.
Pharaoh's the snake because Abram gives a ride to Pharaoh?
That's a good.
what I'm saying is like Abram doesn't stop her. He's just kind of like, I need you to go do this for my sake. I'm saying like there's ties to the garden here with like possessions and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Like they're getting knowledge, getting possessions. You know, cool. Yeah, we need to stop. We'll talk about that.